Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me back on my channel. And I have the absolute honor of talking to Maya Bello, or you may know her online as Maya Loves Code. And if you're on my channel, I guarantee you 99% that you have seen her face in her awesome videos before. Thank you so much for coming, Maya.
I'm so excited. Like the first video I watched of yours was a day in the life. And then after that, I've been hooked. So excited to be
Oh,
here.
thank you. Yes, I love your videos. If you don't know, Maya does some really awesome content talking about her journey as a software engineer. She does a lot of Python videos if you are looking to learn Python. And the thing I love about her content is it is so specific. So like she's teaching you exactly like one thing. So you can't get lost because she's telling you exactly what you need to know. Very easy to follow. And I just love her bubbly personality as well. So I just
Oh,
love
thank you.
it. So if you're not following her already, I'm going to go ahead and leave all of her social media links down in the description bar, and you have to check her out. You have to. It's a requirement.
Thank you.
Of course. So I don't even know where to start sometimes, but because I'm so excited. But can you tell us a little bit about your journey into tech and sort of like what made your journey a little bit different than somebody who might go through a traditional path of going to college and then getting a job like right out of school?
Yeah, so my journey into tech was very random.
Mhm.
So like I was just in high school and I just did not know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, like most like 18-year-olds out there.
Yeah.
But my parents, they were super strict. They're like, you're not gonna go to college and just waste everyone's time and money and all of that. So they're like, you gotta pick a major. So
Mhm.
like when I tell you to all the different colleges I applied to, I had like a totally like different major. It was so random. Like NYU was like the school I thought I was gonna go to, and I
Mhm.
chose like creative writing. I chose history at some places and all that. But the school in San Diego, because I currently live in California, I chose like computer science.
Mhm.
So that was actually the school I got the most financial aid to. So I
Mhm.
ended up going there. And then I was just like so confused with everything that was going on. I'm like, I'm with people who have been coding since they were like 7 years old. Like it was so competitive. And there was a lot of people telling me, like, this isn't for you. Like, you need to do something else. And
Mhm.
it's so crazy because, like, looking back, if people were just super supportive and just like, you know what, Maya, you have all these other talents, maybe, this major or that major, like, maybe you should try it. But since they were just so, like, I don't want to say mean, but just like trying to, like, it's kind of like that gatekeeper mentality trying to get
Yes.
me out of this. I was like, nah, I'm gonna be right here in these classes with you. So you're gonna look at me. So then it was kind of like that. And it wasn't until I took like an app development class where it
Mhm.
was like a team of us and we came together and we were building something. I was like, wow, I kind of like this. Like this is actually vibe, like this is a vibe and stuff like that. And then I also took an algorithms class and I was like,
Mhm.
I kind of like this too. And then that
Yeah.
was when 2 years later, I could finally see myself in tech. And I just tried to like kept going.
Good. I love that. Perseverance is definitely like a key thing that you have to have, especially in school. I know I had a similar experience when I was in college, and I sort of felt like I really didn't belong because there was just such a different atmosphere between high school, where I think people are more apt to push you because they're like, oh, everybody can do it, get through high
Yeah.
school, until you get to college and it's like so competitive and cutthroat. And sometimes people just want you like out of the running so they don't have to compete against you. So yeah, I totally agree though. What do you think one of the biggest challenges you faced during your journey was?
Oh, that's such a good question. The biggest challenge. I would say it was changing my mindset was the biggest challenge that I had to go through. So
Mhm.
before in high school, I was chilling. I was that kid, I would study maybe 30 minutes before a test, go in
Mhm.
there, boom, boom, boom. I was that girl,
Yeah.
back then. But then actually going to college and realizing that like I tried doing that, and like it got me like through one quarter of college. I think I got like a 3.5 that quarter. But
Mhm.
then, with like computer science and all those concepts, it builds off of each other. So for
Yes.
example, like the first language I learned was Java. So I was kind of like memorizing, cramming different things. But then the next quarter, I had to code in Java, C, and C++, all
Hmm.
in one class. And it was like, you can't memorize all of that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Right? There's no way. So it was like after that, I just started like doing well. Like my grades were dropping, like
Hmm.
that quarter, maybe 2.0, the next quarter, like 1.3. And like I had like never done that bad in college. So I was just
Hmm.
like, I'm dumb. And I'd walk around like, this
Oh,
is for smart. I know I was so mean to myself. Like looking back, it was like, I really went through it. And I'll just be like, yeah, I would just talk down to myself so much.
yeah.
Like, but the only thing was keeping me was just like, I'm just not gonna quit. And that
Yeah.
was it. Like there's no logic behind it. I just wanted to keep going. But it wasn't until I realized, like, okay, I need to change my mindset. If I'm calling myself dumb, then I'm gonna be dumb, So I was
Yeah.
like, just telling myself, you can do it, try as hard as you can. And that was really like when the shift started to happen. And it was
Hmm.
like going from the fixed mindset to the growth mindset was so key for me. And it
Hmm.
wasn't until that switch, and it wasn't like, oh, I learned how to do all these different cool code things, that your mindset has to switch. Day one, come in there like it's going to be hard, but I can do it. And that
Right.
like what changed a lot for me.
Yeah, believing in yourself and just again keep pushing. I think sometimes or a lot of times I know I am my toughest critic for sure,
Yeah.
and just if I don't get it immediately or in the specific time span that I think that I should, I'm just like, nope, I can't do it. And I can just be like really, really down on myself. And I think that happens to the best of us. And with that, and then also people telling you that you shouldn't be like in a
Yeah.
specific space, it can be really, really tough and challenging to like see yourself thrive in that space. So I get that. So
Yeah.
after you got out of college and you graduated, did you find that you got your first job immediately or was it tough for you?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask me like college, boot camp, self-taught, like which
Hmm.
route should I go? And one of the advantages of going the college route is that they have a lot of career fairs, depending on the
Hmm.
school you go to. My school was like a huge computer science school. So
Hmm.
like what people would do, they would print out like 70 resumes and
Yeah.
go to this career fair and just, your goal is to hand it out. So you're trying to talk to that many people, but it kind of is possible.
Hmm.
So for me, I interned at a company. I enjoyed it. It was there that I was like, okay, like I liked those classes I told you about earlier.
Hmm.
Working is actually so different from school. I'm like, I just need
Yes.
to graduate, get out of here. And I think I'm gonna be okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, so my company, they gave me a full-time offer, which was so great. And I also tell people to look out for that, because some
Hmm.
internships, you don't have to interview again to get like a full-time
Right.
offer. Your internship was kind of like the interview. So that
Hmm.
was so helpful my junior year. And I was like, I like the company. Yo, I'm
Yeah.
about to get paid. I was making like minimum wage at the time. I'm like, let's go. So that's how
Right.
I got my first job, was like just through the internship that I had. And that was actually the first internship that I had, because I had all of that like imposter syndrome my first
Hmm.
2 years. I was like, I can't pass Calc 1. How am I gonna, what company's gonna want this? Even though Calc 1 is not even like, you don't need that calculus to code.
Listen, if it makes anybody feel better, I don't know how I would do in a calc class, right now, especially. I don't even think if I had to go back to discrete math, I
Oh,
would be kind of
goodness.
shaky on that too.
Yeah, oh, discrete math. Ooh, it's taking me back. Taking me back. That class. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I couldn't stand it. Do you think that there's anything specific that you did on your job search for your internship? Only because I know sometimes if everybody's going to the same school and sort of going through the same program, your resume can seem sort of the same as other people's, especially if you're including your course curriculum and the curriculum is the same for everyone and you're doing the same projects. Is there anything that you did specifically to make yourself stand out?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I sometimes tell people like wherever you shine best, like, go that route. So for
Hmm.
me, it's like in person, I can show my passion and stuff like that.
Yes.
Like communication, all that.
Mhm.
Like I have those skills. So that's why I knew career fairs. It didn't matter like if it was a smaller one, a bigger one, like you would see me there just because like, human interaction is like, it's not hard for me.
Mhm.
But like other people, I had a friend who instead what they did was they were fine with like updating their resume per
Mhm.
each job description. So they're saying, oh, they want someone with web development skills. They would make sure to have like that keyword web development on their
Mhm.
resume. So that works so great for them. And I know another person who will just go on LinkedIn, look up like Google Recruiter and like look at all the different ones and reach out to every single one. So I
Yes.
think at the end of the day, it's like it was hard work for each of us, but we also did what was like the skill set that we had and kind of like
Yeah.
go into that. So I think it was like those in-person interactions that I had.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I actually didn't do enough of was tailoring my resume, number one, because I didn't even know when I was in college that that could definitely help, just like tailoring your resume even a little bit to change up like some of the keywords, to make sure that you look appealing for the position and not that you're just casting a very wide net. And I definitely was not as big into LinkedIn when I was in school as I am now.
Yes, LinkedIn. Like, even though I didn't end up going with those companies, I had like huge companies reach out to me through
Yeah.
LinkedIn while I was still in school and things like that. So, yeah, if you do not have a LinkedIn and you are watching this, like, open up a new tab while you listen and set up that LinkedIn.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm even thinking about like trying to figure out how to get like some LinkedIn tips together because it's such a powerful tool for like networking and even things like Twitter nowadays. I see so many people
Yes.
who are getting awesome job opportunities specifically because they put themselves out there and they chose to learn in public. And when people can see that you're learning, you're sharing your wins, but you're also sharing your fails, that shows a lot about a person. So I think that's a really good resource as well.
Yeah, and I think so many people want to show like the finished products. Like I actually wish that I started my YouTube channel while I was in college. So I
Mhm.
could really like see myself in that light and other people can really see like, yo, she struggled, but she did it.
Yes, exactly. Seeing like the difference in yourself from when you were a freshman to like what you do now and just you made it, like you actually did it. You know so much more than you did before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So I would love to talk about like a little bit about learning how to code because you do a lot of content on learning how to code here online. So if you had to go back to your younger self and give yourself one piece of advice for when you were learning how to code, what would it be?
When I was first learning how to code, I feel like, so, okay, one piece of advice, ooh, I needed a lot
Or
of
a
help.
few?
Okay. So one thing I remember when I took like my first class and it was like pair programming. So I was
Mhm.
like paired with this other person and we were like coding together. And he was like, yeah, I never really read the instructions. I just start coding. Girl, and my silly self was like, oh, okay. So like for like weeks, I was just like trying to follow that. And I'm like, wait, I don't know what I'm even supposed to be doing. So
Mhm.
something I realized that with any programming assignment, even today, like at my job, once I know the assignment, I like to take it by myself and go through it by myself. Like I might highlight different portions. I'll come up with a list of questions to ask to my teacher or ask the product manager. Like
Right.
I really want to understand what the problem is before I think about any type of solution. So that was one thing I wish I would do. And even to this day, like once you know what the problem is, don't start writing code yet. Like
Yes.
come up with like an algorithm, I'll write it out in English. Like, what do I
Mhm.
want to happen? Some people like pseudocode, which I think is great too. Like just trying to like really understand, you understand the problem. Now you have that game plan, kind of test out what that game plan is, poke some holes in it. And then after that, begin writing code. And what I noticed is with that whole process is actually shorter than if I just went to go writing code
Yeah.
immediately. And every time I don't do that, even to this day, I'm like, girl, you could have found that out in step one. You didn't. Like I always be like, why didn't you do that?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And then when it comes to the actual code, like sometimes you're given code, like some starter code. Like,
Hmm.
don't be afraid to put some print statements all up in that,
Yes,
comment code out. Like in all my tutorials, I like to actually show me like printing out stuff as I go and not just
hmm,
coding out a perfect solution, to show that it's good to like test what you're doing and test as you go.
exactly.
And I wish I did all of that in the beginning.
Yeah, I think it's actually funny that you say that because I just tweeted out today and I will put it somewhere here that you should don't underestimate the power of writing out your logic and thinking about the solution before you start coding.
Yes.
Because I just started teaching my husband how to code, and he had like a
Oh,
little bit of coding knowledge, like a long time ago, like 8 or 9 years ago when he was in college. And he had a bad teacher, is basically like what it boiled down to. And
that's
a
true.
bad teacher mixed with Java, which is already kind of a difficult language if you've never coded before. It was just
Yeah.
like the perfect storm of bad things to where he felt like he wasn't good at coding, it wasn't for him. And now some things have changed and he can see sort of what I'm doing and it sort of interests him. So we've been
Yes.
going through and learning, and I'm like, you cannot start just writing code. You have to like write it down first, because he'll sit there for like 30 minutes and try to figure out what he's doing. And I'm like, you could have done that easier by just writing it
Yeah.
down first. Even if you don't know all the syntax to like what you're trying to do, if you can figure out what you're trying to do by like just writing it out, like you said, in plain English, so much easier to look up on Google or Stack Overflow or whatever. How do I do this in Java? So yes, you have to do that definitely when you're first starting out.
You should make a YouTube video like with that title, like teaching my boyfriend how to code. Like, I love that. That's so interesting.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. It's been an interesting journey because there's so many things that, of course, like I've learned since I've been coding for a long time. And I have to realize I have to let him make certain mistakes on his
Yeah.
own, because if I don't, then he's not actually, they're not going to be as meaningful. So, like,
Yeah.
we know it's good to write things down because we've wasted like hours of time,
Years.
probably, yes, pulled out our hair trying to figure out solutions for things. But I just have to keep reminding myself that, like, okay, he has to make this mistake. I can't make it for him. I can give him advice, but he's going to have to make it by himself.
Yeah, and it's so interesting too when I would do like interview prep with people, like
Hmm.
I would like pretend to be the interviewer, give them the question, and then they're like, they just start coding, and I'm like, what are you trying to do? And all that stuff. They're like,
Hmm.
honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's so crazy how really like, because you would think writing things out would make the process longer, but
Hmm.
in the end, it saves you so much time.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've like started to write code and then sometimes I get distracted and come back to it and I'm like, what was I trying to do before? Or
Yep,
there's like a
true.
snag in my logic and it doesn't make sense anymore. And I don't have anything to reference to see what I was actually trying to accomplish.
Yeah, that's so true. That's like documentation in a sense, even us just like
Yeah.
writing out our game plan. When you come back to it, you're like, oh, okay, I see. That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So many times in the tech industry, it can be difficult to break in, especially for people who are underrepresented or historically excluded. So, did you find this to be the case when you were trying to break into the industry? And if so, what were some of the challenges that you faced as somebody who is currently underrepresented? And the industry needs diversity. So,
Yes, 1,000,000,000%. I would say some of the things were like feeling like I don't belong in a sense. So
mhm,
I wouldn't go after certain opportunities, just because, I felt like I didn't even belong in the space in the first place.
yeah.
I would say some challenges include like, you know, not only are we Black, we're also women in tech.
Mhm.
So it's like sometimes when different things would go on, like let's say no one wants to be my partner for an assignment. It's like, I wonder if it's because I'm a woman or Black that they disrespected me like this.
Yes.
I would say like, when you see that job application, you might think you need to meet like 10 out of 10 of the requirements in order to
Mhm.
apply. That is not true at all. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, you cannot meet any of the requirements and
And still get it.
requirements and still apply. Some recruiters don't have a technical background in general. So like they wouldn't even know that you didn't meet it from looking at your resume. So just, take that shot and don't feel like you have to meet everything with
Mhm.
something else. And then you know, with like gatekeeping and different things like that, like the school I went to, it was less than 1% Black at the time. And it was like
Hmm.
a huge public university and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So, you know, I just feel like, you know, yeah. So I feel like a lot of it was like internal as well, like what I was going through, like because I grew up in like, you know, Oakland, California, with so
Hmm.
much diversity, and just moving to that actually had like a lot of culture shock, just
Hmm.
because I was not used to this and stuff like that. But I think those were some of the problems I faced.
Yeah, for sure. And just like you were saying, a lot of times we look at like job requirements and we have to think that we need to check all 10 of the boxes. And a statistic that I found online some time ago was that women typically think that they have to meet like 80 to 90% of the qualifications on an application before they'll even consider applying. And men, if they check like 30 to 40% of the requirements, then they'll just go for it and they'll just do it.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. You need that type of energy. Like I was listening to this woman speak one day, I think Jessica O. Matthews, her name, and she was just like, every time she goes into a meeting, she's just like, let me channel, let me channel that Connor energy.
Hmm.
She would look in the mirror like, you're gonna be like Brad in this meeting.
Yes.
That's how she like hypes herself up. So
Yeah,
apply,
I,
apply, apply. You can meet none of the requirements. It might say you need a computer science degree. Apply anyways. I know
yeah.
so many people who just like, you know, they're self-taught and they're at Google, they're at like
Hmm.
financial tech companies, startups everywhere. So like just give your worst thing that happens is you don't get the job. And that's totally okay.
Exactly. Yeah, if you don't get it, you can A, try again eventually, and B, look for another opportunity that might have been better for you to begin with. And I think that's
Exactly.
been my thing recently, is not getting so hung up if an opportunity that I thought that I would be good for, maybe it didn't work out, and not putting myself into like this one box of I have to do this because I've decided in my mind for some reason like this is what I have to do, and if it doesn't work out, then I'm just going to be like so sad and distraught, just being like, it didn't work out, move on to the next one, because there are plenty more, because this industry is booming and there are
Yes.
so many positions that are available now and just positions that are upcoming. So,
Yeah, no, I love that mentality. And even for me, like, you know, it's easier said than done to say, like, oh, you know, failure leads to success. It's okay to
mhm.
fail, because in the moment, like, failing sucks. But,
Yeah,
like, in general, like, I truly believe that, like, if you take time to realize why it didn't work out and, like,
mhm.
make it a goal to not make that exact same mistake twice, like, you understand why you failed, it
Exactly.
actually teaches you so much than if you just automatically like succeeded, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Just like I was saying a little bit ago, you have to learn and make some mistakes on your own, because if you don't, they're not going to really mean anything and you're not going to, pick anything up from them.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, what are your favorite go to resources, if you have any, for anybody who's learning how to code?
Okay. Does learning how to code in general or like a specific language?
Either, if you have specific language resources, that's awesome. I know you do a lot of Python.
Yeah, I know. That's why like a lot of Python stuck out to me.
Hmm.
Like if you are completely new to coding, there's this book that's like how to think like a computer scientist, and
Hmm.
it's on like Runestone Academy. They have so many free books, and why I love their books, it's so interactive. So like you might read 3 paragraphs and they have like 3 questions for you to answer. And I know
Hmm.
for me that keeps me more engaged when I know like,
Yes.
okay, I'm gonna have to do something with this, you know.
Yeah.
I really love their books. They have a book on Python programming, data structures and algorithms in Python, like so many different resources. So Runstone Academy, definitely. I would also say like, I like to I like comparing learning to code with learning like a language or something like that, like
Hmm.
Spanish, English, and all that. So like there's an app called Enki, Enki. And why I
Hmm.
like it is it has like different little kind of like activities that you can do. And it's just like you can do like 15-minute things here and there. So before the pandemic, I really liked it just because like, you know, in those slow times, like I'm walking into like my office building or like I'm on the
Yeah.
bus and different things like that. It's so easy to just pull out that app and just like do an activity. and they have it for like Python, JavaScript, Java, Git, like just so many different topics. So NKey is a really great app. And then, you know, if you're getting into web development, the Odin Project is another one that I really like. So many different resources, and all these resources are free too, that I like said before. And yeah, if you're trying to get there, it just has so many different lessons that you can take that I really like. I feel like in general, like, you know, they have like books, they have like YouTube tutorials, like all these different things, like figuring out how you learn best and then find, you know,
Yes.
that resource for you.
Yes.
Because for me, I might like these interactive books, but then someone else might be like, yo, I'm just trying to get through this. You know,
Yeah.
like it might not work for that person. So figuring out how you learn best is so key.
Yes, for sure. Especially when our career is going to require us to keep learning. Figuring that out earlier in your journey than later is definitely, it'll help you out. It'll save you some time in the long run.
Yeah, no, for me, like reading documentation, like if I just see like these long articles, nah, you know, that doesn't work for me. I would rather
Yeah,
watch a video about it, and that's just like,
exactly.
that's how my brain works. So I had to learn that, but once I did, I don't waste time, you know, let me open up
Exactly.
YouTube and do what I got to
Yeah.
do.
You pick the platform that works best for you. You pick the method that works best for you. You pick it up, move on.
Yep.
Awesome. So I would love to talk a little bit about your most recent job search process. I was telling you a little bit before we started recording that it was super inspirational, and it gives me like a lot of encouragement to move forward with mine. I know that it can be very, very daunting to start the technical job interview process, just because specifically for tech, there are so many different interview types, styles, processes, and every company sort of has their own thing and their own way of how they want to do it. So
Yep.
trying to figure out how to best study for them, figure out how to just do well in technical interviews where you're going to be coding or whiteboarding, it causes a little bit of anxiety to me sometimes. So seeing your content about it just made things a little bit easier. But I would love to know how you went about this job search process, especially during a pandemic.
Yeah. So you touched on so many great things. I don't even know where to start, but like, I really love how you said how different companies have different interview processes. Some do whiteboarding, others, you know, might do data structures and algorithms, others might have like a language specific interview.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what's key is, you know, creating a list of companies you want to apply for and
Mm-hmm.
seeing what their interview process looks like so you can best prepare. Like you don't want to spend like months learning data structures and algorithms just to get there and they're saying, hey, can you code a to-do app in JavaScript? And
Yeah.
that's not what you prepared for. So I think that is key. And then also what I did was I realized that my interview process is going to be a journey. And that was
Mm-hmm.
something I had never done before. So for example, with like the Google technical interviews, I failed that twice, like in college, trying to get an internship, failed it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like thinking back, I would only spend like a couple of weeks of studying. I went back to look at like my Leak Code, which is like a popular website for doing interview prep. I did barely any problems. I was like, I did 10 problems before my Google interview and thought that was going to lead somewhere. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, okay. But yeah, so this time I was like, what if I did 50 problems before? What if I did 100, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
I did my research and there was a channel, BackToBackSWE, and he talked about how he did 250 problems on Leak Code. And I was just like,
That's a
wow, like
lot.
you really did that much? And then just like, you know, like talking to different people, I talked to someone else and he actually like took off from his job for 6 months in order to study for like a FANG
Wow.
type interview and then passed it, you know? So I was just like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm understanding what this looks like now. I just got to put in the work. So, you know, that's
Yeah.
what I did. And, you know, Eric Duran has this like technical interview study sheet that
Mm-hmm.
that really took my learning to the next level because I realized for most of the companies I wanted to go to, it was going to be data structures and algorithms. So it
Yeah.
has a list of all the different topics, arrays, linked lists, stacks, queues, abstract data, like it just had everything. And I was like, okay, I have to do 10 problems in each of these categories in order to get to like level 2. Now I have
Right.
to do the medium problems and I just like went through that process and it took me 7 months. You know, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people think that you want a new job, it's like that. But for me, it wasn't like that. And from people I talked to as well, like my friend, 6 months, then he got Amazon. So like for a lot of people I'm talking to, it's a journey. So I would work all day. And then after
Yeah.
that, spend like 4 or 5 hours studying. On weekends. It was like an 8 hour type of thing. If
Hmm.
you look at my YouTube channel, there's like a period where I just like stopped creating content. And that
Yeah,
was because I had to like figure out my priorities and realize, like what did I really want to focus on? And
exactly.
it was a journey. It was
Yeah, not only is it a journey, it's basically a full-time job, just like you
yeah,
mentioned, the person who had to take off of a paying job for
yeah,
6 months to just be able to study enough to be able to get the interview and to pass the interview with the FANG. That is a real commitment for
yeah,
sure. And it just goes to show you that a lot of times it doesn't really matter how good at coding you are. It's about
yeah.
how well you can pass the technical interviews and pass these like hacker rank or like leak code question, basically data structures and algorithm problems. It can definitely be really tricky.
It is a whole different beast, a whole different monster. Like they need, yeah, it's crazy that this is still the process at some companies, just because
Hmm.
like you don't use this type of stuff on the job. It's like
Hmm.
very computer science, very like deep into that. And yeah, it's a long process, but it was definitely worth it for me in the end. But I just remember going through this like, 3 months in, am I going to be doing all of this for nothing?
Hmm.
Like it was just a really scary thought that I had, that I was just like wasting all of this time. But
Yeah.
like you kind of just have to trust in the process and realize if you do all of these steps. And it's like, I'm not even just practicing coding. I'm practicing
Hmm.
like, how do I communicate my code to someone? I'm practicing typing and talking and coding all at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like I did mock interviews with random people through a website called Pramp, and I would try to like, keep that up. And then at the same time, it's like, you don't want to spend all your time on like arrays and then you get asked a graph problem. Like
Yeah.
there's so many different pieces to interviewing, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it was very tiring. And I believe it was on Instagram where you shared a story about going through so many rounds of interviews and you actually weren't feeling well, and but you pushed through anyway.
Lord, like it was crazy. Like I was doing so many interviews. Like I was interviewing with like 11 different companies at the same
Hmm.
time. And
That's a
like,
lot.
yeah, and these interviews, y'all, like some places you do a coding assessment. After
Hmm.
the coding assessment, you do the phone interview. After the phone interview, you have the all day interviews, which is like 5 hours, and it's just
Hmm.
back to back with different people. And I remember one company, and the company I ended up going to, I started it, and like you get like a 5 minute break in between for some companies, 5 to 15 minutes. After my first one, I was just like, whoosh. Like it
Oh
was like the
no.
Krusty Krab meme. I was just like, whoa, I do not feel well. And I was like, what do I do? And I was like, it's okay. You're here now. Keep going. And it just kept going downhill for each of the interviews.
Oh.
And then I was just like, but, it takes a lot. Like even after all my interviews, I had to recover. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like some people when I tell this to, I'm kind of like scared to tell them, just because it's like I was scared for my health at that point, and
Yeah.
I don't want people to push themselves like that. But it's like from people I'm talking to, they had to like go super hard. So it's just like,
Hmm.
drink your water, try and take care of yourself, because yeah, your health, especially through a pandemic,
Yeah.
all these hospitals, you could not go in, at the time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. But since you ended up going with that job that you were doing that interview process for, clearly they saw something in you, and it worked out.
Yeah, no, they
But
saw I was doing so good, and I was like, wow, like even like sick Maya was killing it. So I was like, I'm gonna
right, it was second nature by that time.
yeah, after that whole long period, it was like I knew what I had to do. I just had to execute at that moment. And it was just like,
Yeah.
you already did. I did another interview that same week. And then
Hmm.
I'm working a full-time job at the same
On
time.
top of it,
So
yeah,
it was a lot.
it's definitely a lot. And I hope that we can eventually figure out how to sort of restructure the interview process a little bit, because sometimes it's not always the best for all kinds of people. I know personally, sometimes I feel like I get really bad anxiety over
Yeah.
things that even if I've done it like 20,000 times and I know I can do it with my eyes closed, if somebody's all of a sudden watching me, it's like I don't know how to talk, like I can't get it together anymore. So, making little tweaks that make things a little bit easier for different types of developers, since we're all not a monolith and we're all different kinds of people.
1,000% agree. Like, I'm just still so shook that this is a process we just decided as an industry to go with. Like other people, I talk to my sister all the time. She's a nurse. She is like taking care of people. She doesn't have to show them her nursing skills when she's trying to apply to a different job. Like,
Yeah.
I think maybe more developers would be switching all of the time if like the interview process was not this like tedious and
Yeah.
crazy. So I feel like it's a way to hold us back, but let me not get into my conspiracy theories.
No, sometimes I also feel like it's gatekeeping.
Yeah.
And at times I really feel like it's actually sometimes in different ways, weeding out people who might have a different disability or a disability that you can't necessarily see, like dyslexia. I sometimes struggle with, like if a lot of the words, or even if like the font is a little bit funny, it is very difficult to like read and make out some of the words sometimes. So if I'm in an interview process and I'm already anxious and then putting that on top of it, that's an easy way for a company to just like weed out a very big like group of people, or people that might need different accommodations. So that's
Yeah.
that's what
No,
I
I
think, at least.
completely agree. Like for one company I interviewed with, for one of the rounds, they were like, "Hey, can you try and build this game?" And apparently it was a very popular game, but I had never heard of it, So I spent like 45-minute interview, probably like 25 minutes trying to understand this game, and I couldn't
Yeah.
even like get to the coding part. So I'm like, that just really wasn't inclusive. You know what I'm saying? Because I guess it's popular in the tech community or with, computer science people, but that just wasn't, look,
Yeah.
I be watching reality TV, like that just wasn't my jam. So it's
Exactly.
like
That's how I
different
feel
things
when
like
I get problems about chess, because I don't understand chess. I don't understand any of the like pawns, the little
yeah.
pieces. I don't understand how they move. Not for me.
Right? Like, what are you trying to test at that point? Like, this isn't, I'm not trying to be a chess player. Like, why?
Exactly.
Even like Pokemon too, people don't come at me, but like, that just skipped me for some reason. So like, sometimes professor would love to use Pokemon references. I'm just like, Lord, let me, Pikachu was, it's just like, you can't even start until you understand the problem. So
Yeah.
it's just not inclusive.
Yeah. Um, One question that I did have. So for the interview process that you just went through, just like you mentioned, a lot of interview processes really test your computer science. And sometimes you're going to be there like as a web developer developing
Yeah.
websites, and that's not what you need all the time. Do you feel like the interview process that you did was indicative of the actual work that you do?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. I think the only company, so it's actually so crazy. Like, I kind of started the process in mind with like a FANG type company. I was like, that's the company I want to, go with. However, the company I ended up going with, I thought their interview process was beautiful from beginning to end. Like they really impressed me. Like, the first phase was like reviewing a GitHub PR and stuff like that. And that was something I do on my day to day. So I was like, is
Yeah.
this like a secret test or something like that? And then after that, like each of the rounds were like real world stuff. There was some system design, but it's like, that's what you do, on your day to day. Like you will do some system design. So that was the only company where it was actually related to it. But for all the other companies, it was data structures and algorithms. And in the job, if I had to reverse a linked list, but I have never used a linked list at all at any
Yes.
company, I would have to use a library for that. If I created my own function to reverse a linked list, that would not get approved at all. They would not go for that. So, I mean, if I thinking about it, I guess it's like my Python skills increased, through doing all of those interviews. But on the job, I use TypeScript. Like, it's not even, I guess it helped my YouTube channel because now I just know Python better, but no.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think another thing that the interview process, not that I'm bashing the interview process at all.
Right? Put that out there.
I think another thing that they tend to exclude is like what you're actually going to be doing. So just like you said, reversing a linked list, why would you flounder if you were actually working? Why would you flounder with it if you could easily, since you know you have the tools basically, you would just need to look up the right resources to help you do it. That's something that interviews sort of exclude, like
Yeah.
your actual practical skills. How can you solve the problem when you're given the right resources? So, you know, the programming language, if you have, you know, the internet to help you, which you
Yeah.
will every day on the job.
I use it every day on the job. I will
Yeah,
Google something.
exactly. If they could test to see, because you still need some skill and understanding to be able to lead your search. If they could
Yeah.
just look to see how you go from not knowing how to solve the problem to, okay, I have this piece. Now let me look up this piece and go get this piece from here and put all of the components that you need together to create a solution. That's more representative of what we do on a daily basis and not just, I don't remember how to reverse this linked list or invert this binary tree. Am I going to sit here and try to figure out how to do it? Or am I going to like go find the solution and, you know, or like a third party library where somebody has graciously done most of the work
Right?
for us?
They have spent years, doing
Yes.
that. So it's like they're not going to take my 5-minute solution of reversing it. They want something that's well tested, all that. And it's like, yeah. So even if I had to do that, it would be a lot
Yeah,
rare or something.
for sure. And you gave tons of awesome advice here, like while we've been talking about interviews, from talking about making sure that you're practicing and just like set yourself up a plan and stick to that plan and don't make yourself sick while you're doing it, hopefully.
Yes.
But if you had to put one piece of advice on just technical interviews in general, what would it be?
Oh man, one piece of advice. I'll say something that I haven't said, but I would say the day of the interview, also make sure to bring yourself to that interview, which
Mhm.
can be so hard because you're so nervous. But like, for example, you have a very like friendly, bubbly personality. Like for me, when I would have the interview, I'd be so stressed. I would really just be straight faced trying to like it would just be like
Yeah,
that. However, at the same time, they're trying to figure out people they would want to work with,
yeah.
so it's like, they're gonna get 1,000 robots, that are
Mhm.
interviewing and all that stuff. However, if you can like show, if you can show who you are and at the same time, like, get through the problem, I think that's a huge plus. I was
Mhm.
telling someone this, so they're like, so you want me to be spitting out Drake lyrics as I'm like coding? And I'm like, it sounds so silly, but like, if you're into Drake, you put a little Drake reference in there, they would
Yeah.
actually, that shows more of who you are. And like, at the end of the day, I've actually talked to people too who have said, and this, I cannot relate to this, what they said, but they said that they've actually had like not gotten through the problem and all that stuff. Like they didn't have like a good working solution and they still got the job and stuff like that. And I think what was like the difference between that was that they really brought themselves and they
Mhm.
were like making jokes about themselves, like, wow, like like this ain't getting anywhere, like different things like that. And they said that worked for them. But I think what's the commonality was just bringing yourself to the interview.
Yeah, for sure. I recently did like a few interviews for the team that I was working on, and I'm more of like a people person. Like, just like you said, nobody really wants to work with a robot. Like, yes, if you are an expert, that's great, but how easy are you to work with, and are you going to work well on a team? Something that I was looking for, because it was an entry level role. I'm not looking for you to be an expert. If you can talk me through at least what you're thinking,
Yeah.
or you know, just like your personality, just being able to talk, and if I can see that you sort of understand the concept that we're trying to get across, or you have the ability to learn, which I think is also a
Yes.
really big
That
thing,
part.
because we're never going to know everything, and just being able to pick up what you need to. Sometimes that means more to me than coming up with than having the actual like working solution. If I can see that the wheels are turning and you can get
Yes.
there, and like you're a nice person also, or not even like specifically nice, but like we can talk about it together and we can work through it together. Sometimes that means a little bit more than somebody who's just going to like type it out and then be
Yeah.
done. And then you can't actually work with them because they're so not full of themselves, but they're like, oh, I'm an expert. I know this. I don't need help on this. And sort of
Yeah.
difficult to work with on a team.
Yeah, at a lot of companies, that's actually like an automatic fail too. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
just get the question and just type out your solution, just because they want to figure out what you're thinking about and what your algorithm is. So they
Mm-hmm.
actually want to like know that. And I've realized too, like once you tell people how you think about things, if you like mess up and do the wrong syntax, they know what you were trying to do. So they'll be like,
Exactly.
oh, line 12, that's the wrong function. And you're like, oh, thank you,
Mm-hmm.
And when you bring your personality too, people like, we're human, people will root for
Yeah,
you. So you
exactly.
might get a little extra hints here and there, just because you brought yourself. So it was something else I had to practice too, was how
Mm-hmm.
can I bring myself in a technical interview?
Yeah, for sure. Just like you said, if you're going in there and you're already anxious, you're scared about having to code, sometimes RBF can set in a little bit and you just look like
Yeah,
Maya
yeah,
trying to
exactly.
code the
That was me,
solution.
yo. That was me.
For sure. So, just to wrap things up, if you had to, or if you have a dream role, because I know a lot of people do not dream to work, if you have a dream role, what would it be? Or even if it's not
Wow.
like a full-time role, if you had to do something regardless of money, regardless of how you
Wow.
would make ends meet, what would you do?
Wow. I've actually never been asked that. Oh man. I really like put out this disclaimer. I really like my job now.
Mhm.
uh, I've always had this kind of like vision of like, because like there's some YouTubers who do like tech reviews of different gadgets and like,
Mhm.
stuff like that. Like I always had a vision of like this like show or something. So I would like produce it or whatever. And it's like kind of like a cartoon, but throughout the cartoon, it's like you kind of have to like solve different problems in order to like reach a goal or something
Mhm.
like that. So it's like imagine like Kim Possible, and there's like the tech guide, Dwayne or
Wade,
Bree.
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like, maybe we see more of what Wade is doing, and you might need to fill in the blank here
Ooh.
and there. Like I just have visions of like, because I love watching YouTube videos and all that stuff. And I just feel like there's a way that we could like bring coding to more people and also make it
Mhm.
fun. So I can see myself like producing something like that.
Ooh, I love that. I
Put
will
it
be
in
on
the
the
universe.
lookout. That's awesome. That's interesting. Yeah, I think we need more of like accurate tech in the media. I
Yes.
think a lot of our representation is somebody like sitting in a van, like doing a heist or something, and they're hacking the mainframe and all kinds of crazy stuff. Or just like it pans over, it's like a screen and it's just green numbers moving down and up the
Yep.
screen. So
Yeah, no, I was watching a movie and they build an app in like 7 hours. I was like, where?
mm,
Please tell me where we could do that, yo. In 7 hours. I was like, that's insane.
yeah, exactly. I used to think that like building specific features, because when you're working by yourself, things are a lot faster when you don't have to, of course, get things code reviewed by people and then have them deployed like on a specific schedule. It takes me a good month to get like a good, probably like one page of a website out from the time I start it to the time it actually gets deployed.
Yeah.
So building things like that, no. I
Where?
wish.
Like, so I see different things like that. And like I want to get rid of it, of like the stereotype of what a programmer looks like and
Mhm.
all of that, just because we come in so many different flavors and all that.
Yes,
And that's just like such an old school way of thinking.
exactly, for sure. If you or false, what's next for your content, your career, or anything else?
Oh, nice. So career. I just want to like just keep working. Hopefully one day move up to senior engineer. So that's kind of like what I'm doing career wise. For my channel, I've been consistent queen over here. So
Yes.
posting every Sunday, and I just want to keep that up. So Python tutorials. I have a day in the life coming up.
Mhm.
So I'm excited for that video and just want to keep, producing videos like that because I just like really love the process of like, coming up with an idea, filming it, editing it, having people see it. It's just like a thrill for me. So I want to keep doing that. And then, yeah, I'm just open to opportunities as well as they come. Sometimes you don't even know what you're looking for and it just like comes to you. So yeah,
Yeah.
just gonna keep doing this.
Awesome. And is there anything that you would like to leave us with?
Ooh.
It can be
Anything
anything.
else? Um, I felt like if you got up to this point, yes, like we see you out there. Thank you. And I'm just saying, like, whatever your goal is, like, wherever you are in your life, just know that you can do it when you put in the work and just keep going. A quote I love is believe you can and you're halfway there. And that's what
Yeah.
has guided me throughout my journey. So just know you can do it, put in the work, and we're going to see you shine.
Awesome. Maya, thank you so much for joining us today. All of the links, all of the apps, I will go ahead and leave them in the description box below in case you want to take a look at them. And thank you so much for coming. This was a really awesome conversation. And I think that a lot of people are going to be super excited to hear it. Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.